Hello, Eager to Know listeners. This is another re-release of a past episode. This time it is with musician Pete Barker. This is a very interesting conversation. Pete was a guy that worked at a record store down the street from me when I lived in the Andersonville neighborhood of Chicago. We started chatting and he agreed to be on the podcast, and he talked about some very intimate details about his creative experience, about his life, and about himself. He talks a lot about his experience with mental illness and how that affects his music and how music affects his mental illness. And I think this is a very interesting conversation. I was very grateful that he opened up to me. We did not know each other. We met at the record store and probably had a 5-minute conversation, and then he's in the studio and we're having this conversation that, as you'll hear, is very intimate. And while we were having this, it was this moment where we were really connected in a very special way. I do recall that he was sharing stuff with me and I was asking these questions, and it was a moment. It was a very interesting dynamic. But yeah, I would see him around the neighborhood, and we had this moment that you are all going to be able to listen to and hopefully learn from. You can go ahead and check out Pete Barker's Bandcamp, and it does not look that he's actively making music anymore, but I will put a link to his Bandcamp so you can listen to it. I hope you appreciate this person who really opened up to me and really to all of you, and I hope that you find it helpful. I met Pete Barker at the record store right around the corner from my home where he works. He shared with me the music that he writes, and we spoke about his relationship to this music. He mentioned his experience with mental illness and how that related to creativity. I thought a discussion about this could be very helpful to people, and he agreed to be a guest on Eager to Know. Pete's experience with depression, anxiety, and OCD has had an impact on living his life and his creative journey. He shared that he found that music was a way to refocus all of the hard work his mind was actively doing. I was curious about his story, and I'm very grateful that he sat down with me to talk about it. Note that at the end of our interview, you can hear 3 songs that Pete performed live in our studio just for us.
Brown, 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 brown. Well, my favorite color is brown. But who cares what I think?
But Pete, I've been listening to your songs and your music and reading your lyrics, and it's obvious that your songs have a lot of meaning and importance to them. When did music start becoming an important part of your life?
Right away. Actually, my mom was a singer, and there was always records around. She sang all the time, almost to the point of, being annoying. But just music right away was like a safe place for me.
So your mom was singing in the house, singing along with records, or she is a singer?
Well, she's a singer. She sang in the Detroit Concert Choir for a number of years, and they competed internationally. They won Choir of the World in the 90s, 96, I think, in Wales. So yeah, she's a pretty legit singer, Yeah. But I also kind of I moved around a lot as a kid. I had a lot of babysitter, a lot of shuffling around, new apartments and stuff like that. So music was definitely like a blanket.
So was music
was
it sort of like something that was consistent with a lot of things changing? Music was
exactly
kind of
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Interesting. So when you say right away, I mean, is this as soon as you remember being aware of the world, you remember music?
I don't know about that. I mean, because I guess my earliest memories are of being maybe 1 or 2, but around 2 or 3, I can remember hearing the Cars in the car with my mom, no pun intended, and hearing Blondie and stuff like that. And sometimes my mom would tell me that it was her.
If that was her singing.
Yeah, if it was you know, and could have been Whitney Houston or something. She'd be like, you know, that's me actually this time. And I believed her, you know, until I was a few years older. But yeah, it was just around so much that I have very early memories of it.
Yeah. So do you think that's pretty common for kids? I know people are always associating particular songs to specific memories. And I feel like, you know, music is the soundtrack to our lives. Yeah. Do you think that's pretty common, or do you think that this has a special intensity for you?
For me, yeah, I think music's very powerful for most people. But I do meet people quite a bit actually who tell me, you know, all I listened to was Christian music until I was 13, or all I listened to was, you know, classical or whatever, because that was all they had access to, or that was all their parents played, or that was all they were allowed to listen to. So I do meet people who maybe do have a little bit more of a surface level relationship with it, just because maybe it wasn't a huge part of their lives really early on, you know. So I like to think that I have a very powerful connection to it, but I think that a lot of people do, so that'd be kind of...
Yeah. So the performance part of it, was that something that was initiated by your mom? And I'm sure it was encouraged by her, but was that something that, like, how did that start?
Yeah, I was really, really scared to sing in front of people for a long time, until I was about maybe 21 or 22. I just started doing it, going to open mics and stuff like that.
But you did it as a kid?
No, I was terrified of singing as a kid. Yeah, I was terrified of it.
So were you writing music though up until then, but just not singing, or like...
No, I started playing guitar at the age of 17 because I was actually like kind of more of an athlete when I was a teenager.
Okay.
But then I didn't really start composing songs and singing them until a few years later. You know, my first few years were just sort of trying to learn my way around the guitar. So I didn't start really... Once I started writing songs, though, I didn't like have an excuse anymore. I had to sing them. Otherwise, It was like, what's the point of even doing this, you know?
Yeah.
So I just had to sort of start, like, even if it was just like, you know, a little around my friends, just so they'd kind of hear me sing even like a tiny bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you started playing guitar, I assume you were just copying songs that you were fans of. You were a fan of. Were you taking proper lessons, or were you just learning on your own?
No, I was just learning on my own. Yeah, I had some song books. I had a Beatles book. I think a lot of people did. I had, or still do. I had a couple of Smashing Pumpkins books, and I had a cousin who was actually taking lessons. So I'd go over to his house and kind of like be like, you know, show me what you learned or whatever. So sort of secondhand lessons, I guess you could say.
So what was it like going from experiencing music and it being so, a part of your life, to now really getting involved in a new way? Because now you are creating music that you are, and let's not talk about writing your own music yet. I want to figure out the jump from being a fan of music to suddenly now I am actually creating this stuff that I'm aware of.
Yeah. So can you phrase the question?
Was that scary? Was it like, oh my gosh, this is amazing? That like, what was the experience or the emotions of playing the guitar and actually creating music?
Yeah, it was the coolest thing in the world, you know, because I just wanted to be like the few people that I admired, you know, like Robert Smith or Billy Corgan or whoever it was, and I knew I didn't just want to play the guitar, like just be a guitar player in a band. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but that I wanted to use the guitar as a tool to create something else.
Okay, so did that happen?
A piece of art.
Did that happen pretty quickly? Like
yeah.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so within the first few years, I started writing little bits of just kind of instrumental stuff, you know, on the guitar. But then sort of adding lyrics and actually having something to say and not being afraid to sing, that took a few years. So It wasn't until my early 20s that I was really doing that.
So was that hard to come up with the material, or was it something that just sort of felt natural? Like, this is something, I finally have a channel for stuff to come out of me type of thing?
No, it wasn't hard, but I did write a lot of horrible stuff. You know what I mean? And that was kind of that was definitely for me part of the growing process. So I never thought that I was incapable. It was never like I was hitting a wall, like, people talk about writer's block or whatever. I've always written a ton, but I just wrote so much stuff that wasn't good. And actually within a few years, I started being able to recognize that and say, this is not something that I can move forward with. So becoming a sort of bona fide songwriter, it didn't take that long. I mean, in my mid-20s, I think I was writing loads of songs, and I think they were pretty good too.
How did you learn how to be a good songwriter? Is that something that you just kind of figure out, or is there a standard that you would hold your songs up to? And the way where my brain is going is with painting. Mm-hmm. Like, when I started painting, if you're starting painting without training, you may not know if your painting is quote unquote good.
Right.
At some point, once you are exposed to people who are formally trained, you have some new insight where you could have some perspective on how to judge it. Mm-hmm. So how do you make a judgment on that?
Yeah, I was always real hard on myself. I always thought, like, if this couldn't at least show up on a B-sides album of one of my favorite bands, then it's not good.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just kind of years of studying, why people put, this chord with that chord, or, what kind of weight, these chords have, or that this lyric might have. And, like things like, it's not just writing like part A, but this part A go with part B, and et cetera. I think that takes like loads of time and commitment, and a little bit of intuition too. And I'd like to think I have that, and I think most people are kind of biased and think that they do. So I'm not unique in that way, but I like to think that I have that sort of intuition about taking pieces and putting them where they go, as far as writing a song, Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a little bit of talent, and it's a little bit of hard work too.
Okay. So a combination of creativity and technique.
Right. Exactly.
So when you have this music that you wrote in the past, are they recorded, or are they? So these are all recordings that you have.
Yeah, I do have some early recordings. Yeah, absolutely. I used to go record with a buddy. He was kind of more the producer engineer, and I would just sort of show up with a guitar and we'd record a few songs.
So do you just have like all this old stuff that you don't think that's any good?
I do. Yeah, I've got loads of old stuff. Actually, that friend he actually lives near Andersonville. He has more than I do. I have hardly any of it. So sometimes I'll have to bug him and write him an email or something. Say, hey, remember that second album that I did? Can you pass it along to me? Because I haven't heard it in 10 years and I want to hear what it sounds like. I swear to God. So he'll, that kind of stuff will happen.
One of the biggest challenges I have as a painter, well, not the biggest, but that's kind of annoying, is when I have a painting that I create, I have this asset. Like I have this thing, this physical thing. Like, what do I do with it if it's not good? Do I keep it? Do I just like stack them all up in my studio? Do I paint over it? And you end up like with all of this inventory of things. And I always tell people, like, if you're a musician, like, it just goes into the ether that you're right, or it's just a recording, so you don't have to deal with it. But as a painter, it's something physical that I have to deal with.
Yeah, it's like in a room. It's like sitting in a room.
It is in a room that I have to I have to physically manage it. So when you were talking about a song, is it, obviously there's music and there's lyrics. Do the two work together to create a song, or can you have a song that's just, I'm not worried about the lyrics, I'm really judging it on the music? Like, how do the two work together?
Yeah, I think you can. I think all three sort of methods work, and what I mean by that is, you have your your Bob Dylans or your Jack Whites who just sort of use the chords as a backdrop for this great vocal and these great lyrics, to get that message across and to get that vocal melody across. And that's not to imply that there's no harmony between the two, but it really is more about the vocal and the lyrics. And that's fine. That's not really what I'm into, but I kind of like to find the perfect vessel, and that would be the music or the chords, and then to sort of get in it, and that's where the lyrics come from.
So you start with the music?
I typically, absolutely. If I'm just sitting around strumming certain chords or something, and and I get this very heavy feeling from it. I'll have to kind of get in that ship and go with it. So the lyrics are more or less dictated by the chords that I'm hearing.
And so do they just come to you, or do you think of lyrics and you write them down? And
I typically don't write them down first. I write them down after I've begun the process of the song. But there is always this latent there's these latent things in all of us, right? So there's things we want to say. There's things that bother us. There's things that cause us panic and anxiety, or fear, hatred, whatever. They're sort of just always boiling underneath. Mm-hmm. So it always just takes a few chords to kind of pull them out of you. And then if you find yourself just uttering, you just utter like one phrase over the chords, you're kind of like, that's exactly it,
That sounds like you have a big advantage that, because people do have all of this stuff boiling inside of them.
Yeah.
And if you can like bring that to the surface with music,
absolutely.
That's a huge advantage that you have that most people don't have. Would you agree?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. It's a great tool for, for finding your way through life, I think.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now you had, when we spoke on the phone, you had mentioned that, you had said that you had used music as a way to like process and deal with things. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Music makes me happy. And so I do play it when I'm happy. So it's not just something that I kind of look to when I'm sad, but, as far as, what am I going to pull from? What are these feelings that, are boiling under the surface that these chords are going to pull out? A lot of those come from a lot of my own struggles, which, with mental illness and things of that nature.
But the music always makes you happy when you're doing it?
Oh, absolutely. The whole process makes me super happy.
So if you are in a low state and music will always make you happy?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, if I have a place to go and say, I want to die, that will always lift me up. And I feel like you usually get cut off from being able to put an emotion like that into the world. Like if you go to your shrink and you say, I want to die, they might be like, oh, hey, like, calm down. Or if you go to a friend or a family member and you say something like that, you're going to worry them, So, in your average societal interaction, you can't sort of come forth with information like that.
Uh-huh.
But music will always let you do that. If you listen to old blues singers or whatever, just something that severe, like a notion that severe, like I'm so unhappy I could die.
Mm-hmm.
You're free to say that. And in that there's something very cathartic about that, So even when I'm feeling that low, which isn't always, I mean, there's many lows, right? But even if I'm feeling that low, I can go tell my guitar. I can go tell that to my guitar, or I can go tell that to the wall while I'm playing my guitar, and something really cool might come out of that. And even if it doesn't, I'm still having fun trying to compose a song.
Right. Would you equate it to like a release type of thing?
Without question. Yeah, I wouldn't be able to live without playing, without writing songs and singing. I couldn't imagine it even.
Huh. Do you think that, wow, that just makes me think how lucky you are that you have that as a tool. I know I said that, but
yeah, no, you're right. I'm very lucky. Yeah.
I think that's amazing because I feel like so many people life in general is just fucking a big challenge.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it causes all sorts of thoughts, feelings, and emotions that are very painful. But I know you had mentioned, a mental illness, if, that is going to escalate or like inflame things even more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So people use all sorts of things to deal with that. And having music, that's really, that's incredible. When did you realize that was something that you had available to you?
That outlet for my feelings?
Yeah. So when we think about where you are now and you have this tool to deal with emotions, where are you today? Like, how does it work for you now? Is, mental illness something that you currently have to deal with, and how does music work with that? How does that help that? How do they work together?
I'm in a good place, I think, and I'm creating a ton. And I'm creating a ton because I'm bummed out that I lost a certain amount of years to sort of like severe mental illness, and a time when I was rather low functioning, and I could have been churning out more music.
Now, were you depressed?
I suffer from depression, obsessive compulsive disorder, really high anxiety, and in the last couple of years, my sort of sensorium's kind of broken down a lot too. So just, light and sound, I'm very sensitive to.
So you were not able to produce music during a period of time?
Well, it's like, I was working, but, when I think about, 2010 to 2015 or something, I mean, I was like doing stuff like, I went to Truman, and I went to UIC, and I remember when I went to Truman, it's just an example. I lived like a mile from Truman, and I used to get out of school, and it would take me like 2 hours to walk home, because I'd have to stop at every single building and in front of every single like building and business and whatever before I could like pass the edge of the building.
Oh, okay, so your time was being consumed.
Exactly. My time was being, I'd get home and I'd just like break down in tears basically, because it was just like, who the fuck takes 2 hours to walk down the street to get home, and that was like my everyday life for a while. And I just couldn't help but thinking I was, jealous of friends who were making music at the time, or, I couldn't help but thinking, this friend of mine or this person, they just in that situation, they would have just gone home after school and picked up their guitar and started playing, they would have just, just done things sort of in a fluid manner. And I don't really get to do that. That was kind of like, I was so sad about that,
I can totally see that, because not only are you upset that you're dealing with this situation of, it taking a long time, but then
right.
You're looking at others and comparing what other people are doing, and it makes you feel even worse.
Right, of course.
So yeah. I can relate to that in other areas.
Yeah. But to speed that back up to now, kind of, I'm in a much better place from a mental health standpoint. But it's just like, oh damn, you got to bear down, because you've been writing for so long, you've been playing for so long. Now's the time, do something with it, because now when I don't do that anymore. It doesn't take me 2 hours to walk a mile, I don't have those same problems. So, it's my responsibility to myself to, make sure I'm using all that extra time to create,
Yeah. Do you feel like you're free? Is there a sense of freedom?
Not completely. I'm not like, completely devoid of those things, depression and things of that
nature.
Yeah,
sure.
But I feel pretty damn free. Yeah, I'd say so.
Good. Do you feel a sense of making up for lost time, or are you just focused on today and doing the best that you can?
Yeah, I do feel that way. And I don't like feeling that way, because it's not really, that's also not super productive, because then you find yourself sort of maybe rushing things or trying to, hurry through a process or something like that. So I'd be lying if I said I don't feel like I need to make up for lost time.
Mm-hmm.
So I do feel that way, but lately I've been trying to kind of just set that emotion aside and just kind of pretend I'm, just super free to go about my business and, as I please, I guess.
Cool. Now, how does the music fit into all of this today for you? In terms of, there is the kind of like work production part of it, but then there's also the healing, helping you deal with your emotions. Can you just tell me how that's split, or what do you want to say about that?
It's actually kind of one. It's all kind of one thing in that I try to spend more time creating or just playing my guitar, innocently like you do when you're, and there's no focus on I need to churn out a track or whatever. I'm just going to play my guitar. I try to fill my time with that, and that allows me far less time to obsess over things or to ruminate on my depression or something I'm upset about.
When you're playing your guitar,
Mm-hmm.
is your brain focused on the guitar as opposed to other obsessive ideas? Or other ideas that...
That's a great question because, because, I was told in therapy a while back that I'm creative, and that a lot of my obsessive thinking, it's very creative. I grew up with a lot of magical thinking. I grew up with a lot of religion, but I mean truly toxic stuff, like a lot of end of the world kind of shit, and miracles here and all that kind of stuff. So there's always been that element to my thinking. A lot of my mental illness is obviously inherited. It's genetic, but that nature and nurture kind of combination is pretty deadly. So there's always been this fantastical element to my suffering, and a lot of that is my own sort of creativity. Believing that this thing that is impossible is, well, maybe it's possible.
Mm-hmm.
And to sort of like, and to go down that road in my mind for hours, days, weeks, whatever. I don't really do that anymore because I try and take that creative energy and redirect it towards something like music, for instance, if that makes sense.
It makes total sense.
Yeah.
It makes total sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned being heard. Can you tell me about when people are hearing your music and really receiving it in the way that you intended it? Can you tell me about that experience?
Yeah, I think it's, part of it's my fault because I don't think I've done enough to really get it out to as many people as I can get it out to. But, I in the aughts, I would give my CDs to friends, and they didn't have a choice. They had to listen to it because they'd like set it in their car in one of those silly 10-disc things that you tie to the visor that you pull down. I don't remember what they're called, but they'd like have to listen to it because it'd just be like right there, and they'd come back, and I'd get good feedback, and I'd hear it in my friends that would, if I'd play a show or something, which was fairly rare, but I'd play out and they'd come see me. And so that was always a great experience. Now, I share things online, and it's like, people can sort of like and run, you know what I mean? So like, you get likes and everything, but it's like the engagement overall is very much down. So I'm personally struggling getting people to stop what they're doing. We're all moving really fast. We're all trying to work and but when it does click, and I do have certain friends who really take the time and they'll even text me and say, I haven't listened to it yet, but that's because when I do, I want to sit with it and listen to it like 2 or 3 times, and I just want to make that my evening. Nice. And that's like really heartwarming to me.
Of course.
And then when they do, eventually get back to me and they say, I loved it, or they say like, they'll like point out a lyric from a song or something. I'm just like, wow, that's so cool. Thank you for doing that. Nice. I try to do that when I have friends who make a record or a painting even, or, really spend some time with it. So
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
If you had your way, what would be the best way for people to receive the music? Would it be listening to it on a CD, or would it be performing it live?
I do like performing live when I do it. It's one of those things like, I guess like getting out on the dance floor at a wedding or something. It's like, people don't want to do it, and then they get out there and then they're like suddenly having a great time and you can't get them off the dance floor or something. I don't play out a ton. And then I it frankly scares me a little bit, obviously, to play my songs for certain people, to be on stage in front of people. It's a little scary. But then when I do it, I feel really good. But to properly answer your question, if I could, if I could have my albums pressed on vinyl and sort of distributed to a number of stores, that'd be like the coolest thing in the world. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, vinyl. Like I work at a record store and just digging,
which is where we met.
And just digging through bins of vinyl all day, you pick some up and you look at them and you're like, God, this is so beautiful. I want one of these, but I don't want this one. I want one it's me on it, and it's me making the, recording the songs and all that. So I've never had a vinyl pressed, and I think I would love that.
Oh, I think you will.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah.
I'm sure you will.
Good.
I'm sure you will for
Thank you.
sure. So if I were to go to Rattleback Records in Andersonville, where you work, and I was to look for this vinyl album that we are planning on getting pressed for you at some time, what section would it be in?
At Rattleback Records, it would be in the pop rock section, because we kind of integrate a lot of sort of classic rock, hard rock, even electronic. And when I say electronic, I mean more or less like radio-friendly electronic or club-friendly.
What if I were to go on iTunes? What category would it be in there?
You could probably find my stuff on like sort of dream pop. I wouldn't necessarily say synth pop, but dream pop, folk, rock. I think those are kind of like the most accurate labels.
So do you have any advice to people that are dealing with just struggles or mental illness as it relates to a creative outlet and using creativity as a way to channel that?
Yeah, two things. One thing I touched on was trying to, I know that everyone suffers kind of to different degrees, but I know that when people are angry, when they're depressed, when they dwell on thoughts for, endless periods of time, or to the point where they're sort of incapacitated, stay in bed all day, things like that. That requires a lot of work. That's hard work. And I know that people who suffer know that, so I don't mean to condescend, but that's hard work. And if you could find a way to refocus that work, you'll get a lot of happiness out of that, I think. And you'll find yourself creating things you didn't even know, you could.
Do you know how someone could figure that out?
Yeah, I mean,
that's like a big ask for someone, that makes complete sense to me. But
you're right, it's a huge ask.
It's a huge ask because I know people that what would I tell someone?
Well, the thing is, like, I can kind of amend what I've just said by saying that that has taken me like years to kind of do. So it's not like I could just sort of wake up one day and say, I'm not going to be unhappy today. I'm going to focus on work instead. So it's very much like a one foot in front of the other process. But even just the mindfulness of going, oh my God, I'm like working my ass off on my own suffering right now. How can I, I'm just going to go, I'm just going to go sing for a little bit, or I'm just going to go, strum my guitar for a little bit. Those periods, those sessions, they will pull something out of you, and I think that once you find the pleasure in that, you'll kind of go back. It's sort of like the being driven by the pleasure of it all, I think kind of will put you in that habit more frequently. And that's why I say it's a one foot in front of the other process. Yeah.
And I think it can be, I think everyone has to find what that is, whether, for you, it's obviously music and creating music. For me, it's visual arts. For some people, it's writing. I mean, writing, I think, is a great thing.
Yeah.
But trying to use creativity as a way to channel all that stuff that's going on in our brains, because it is a lot of work. It's a lot of work. We spend many people, including me, spend a lot of mental brain cycles on things that aren't really productive,
right?
And they're destructive.
Absolutely, yeah. I think we're kind of wired that way for the most part, and then just people who suffer with certain mental illnesses, kind of that's accentuated, So maybe that. That non-productive spinning is kind of spinning even a little harder and a little faster. So I totally understand that. It's definitely something that plagues most artists to some degree.
Yeah, definitely. Cool.
And you're a great painter, by the way. I've been hesitant to say that because I didn't want you to think I was kissing your ass ahead of it. But I've seen some stuff on Instagram and Facebook that I thought was fantastic. So you'll be hearing from me in the future now that we've done this, But
okay, well, thank you. That means a lot to me.
Of course, sure.
So in terms of people listening and suggestions for them to push their creativity forward, do you have anything additional you could suggest?
Yeah, definitely. I think try and do something scary artistically. And what I mean by that is you always hear people say, do something scary, like go play a show or get people to hear your music. That's scary because, people have stage fright and things like that. But what I mean is do something that opens yourself up to, I wouldn't say like attack, but say whatever you truly want to say, because I think you'll find that actually most people will embrace the real you, if that makes sense. Even if you just have to like write it down, whatever that may be, like maybe you hate your brother or something. Like I don't really know, but I'm just saying these things get people sort of marginalized artistically, but you can really put those sorts of feelings into something, and people will really embrace your honesty, I think. I guess that's what I'm trying to say, is just people tiptoe around their real feelings when they write and when they paint and when they and there's things they're afraid to say because they don't want this or that person in their life to judge them. Fuck all that. You don't have time for all that. You should do something that scares you.
And be on, and that comes from
pull
the
that
honest.
out of your, right, exactly, because that's how you got to find out who you are.
Okay, that is a great suggestion. Well, thank you so much. This has been really a great conversation. I really appreciate you taking the time to hang with me and for performing. That was great.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I had a great time.
Where can people hear your music or learn more about what you're all about?
Yeah, sure. I'm on Spotify. I'm on Bandcamp, SoundCloud. I have sort of a mini bio on all those pages. They're very easy to find. I just go by my name, Pete Barker. There's no, crazy band name or anything like that. I have a couple videos on YouTube. Yeah, I'm out there.
Pete performed 3 songs live in our studio for us. It was just his voice, a guitar, and a microphone. The following are those 3 songs we recorded. They are Blue, Life and Death, and Forgive.
Blue, 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 you own nothing blue except that old frock coat that I appreciate. And black, 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 your eyes are so, so black, and that's my heart attack when I see them. And brown, 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 well, my favorite color is brown, but who cares what I think? And red, 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 your lips are so, so red, and I am almost dead. I can't have them. And I am almost dead. And I am almost dead. My favorite color is brown, but who cares what I think? Red, 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 your lips are so, so red, and I am almost dead. Did you ever die and come back to life? Did you ever die and come back to life? If I could do it all again, if I could do it all again, if I could do it all again, well, I wouldn't do it all. I wouldn't do it all again. And how do you think that feels? And how do you think it feels to hear the wind hit the trees and the birds hit the moon, to see the sun hit the side of the building where you live? And did you ever die and come back to life? And did you ever die and come back to life? Forgive, that's a 7-letter word, and I don't need to tell you that, but you'd be surprised at all the shit I need to tell you. Oh, but I forgive you. And black coffee, now that's 2 separate words, and I don't need to tell you that, but sometimes I think that maybe you could use some coffee so you could see what's going on. Sometimes I think about you walking around in the town that you live with no shits left to give. And all this time's gone by, technology's changed, but maybe you've rearranged it so that you can just be happy without it. It's just like nothing ever happened, and you still read the same old books. You're very romantic, that's what I love about you. Maybe you should ask somebody else what books they are reading and how it makes them feel, and how it makes them feel. Sometimes I think about you pissing someone off and then not realizing for a week you'd hurt somebody's feelings. Oh, coffee, now that's 2 separate words, and I don't need to tell you that, but sometimes I think that maybe you could use some coffee so you could see what's going on. And And forgive, that's a 7-letter word. And I don't need to tell you that, but you'd be surprised at all the shit I need to tell you. Oh, but I forgive you. I forgive you.
My name is Ricky McGuckran, and you have been listening to Eager to Know, the podcast. If you haven't already, please go to Apple Podcasts and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. Join me next week for another Eager to Know podcast.